Hello, and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, the host and founder of E=Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, functions, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver business results. The role of the leader is to empower, inspire, and enable the people and team to really deliver on those results. And there's a repeatable formula that drives success, the E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. However, each leader's approach to applying that leadership code is unique because there's no one way to lead. And that's why we love highlighting different leaders to hear how they show up and lead their teams to succeed. We talk about what drives them, what their leadership styles are, and how they interact. So, this is an interactive session. So, we'd love to hear from all of you. Please use the chat to let us know where you're dialing in from. If you want to share your LinkedIn, that's great. And also ask questions as we go through. When I was talking to Melinda before we got started, our guest today, she wanted to know, when do you think the Cowboys will win the Super Bowl again? So we'd love to hear from you, and I think Melinda might have a prediction as well. So we'll get into that shortly. So let's get started. I am so thrilled to welcome Melinda Lawrence, who's the CFO at DivCom, to our session today. Melinda has been in finance for over 30 years, starting in public accounting, and now she's making big waves at DivCon, who is known for their innovative and sustainable approach. We first crossed paths 5 years ago. I can't believe it.
I know. That's crazy.
Yep. And we're both C-suite execs at Worksoft, where we launched into some serious leadership upgrades and strategic realignments with our Align and Grow program. Our paths have intertwined ever since, and it's been fantastic to keep up that connection with you, Melinda. Melinda's a Dallas native, a diehard TCU fan, and above all, puts her faith and family first. It's always enlightening to chat with her about finding that sweet spot between work, life, and everything in between, especially since she and her husband are both at the helm of their careers. We're guiding their kid, and they're also guiding their kids through the maze of life. Linda, I'm so excited to have you here today, and I can't wait to hear about your journey that you could share with others and your personal values, really, that fuel your success. So let me stop for a second. Let me turn it over to you. Welcome, and share with the audience how you got here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm just delighted to be here. And thanks for asking. And as I said, this is really out of my comfort zone. And so I am thrilled to be doing something out of my comfort zone. And that is actually one of the things I really think has helped me in my leadership journey. So how did I get here? I think back to saying yes to a lot of things where I didn't know really what was going to be happening, and just having the faith that I was going to be surrounded by people that would help guide me and direct me. And I got really, blessed during my journey in public accounting. You had that same, beginning to your career. It is one of the best places to start a career because of the learning and development, the coaching, the mentoring, everything that you need in a career, you can get in public accounting, and you're challenged from day one. So that's, I think, how I got here, is just saying yes and listening and putting my faith that it's going to work out.
It's funny, Melinda, you and I both started in public accounting, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure a lot of people know that about me because I think you went definitely down the traditional path, right? Being a
Right.
CFO, whereas I went into being a chief people officer. It just very different path. But that public accounting, I agree with you. The stuff we learned during that time was so powerful, and really, consulting with clients, understanding, looking for problems, how to solve them, et cetera. They're skills that really helped throughout the career.
Yeah. So I think about it. We had a discussion yesterday where, even though it's been 12 years or 13 years since I left public accounting, and so I'm so happy I don't have to do a timesheet anymore, but we were talking about tracking time And so I think that's one of the things as a leader. I said, hey, I know it's been a while since I've done it, but I remember what it's like to have to track your time. It's a beatdown, it's hard, but here's why it's important. So I think it's great when we can pull on all those experiences from whatever point in time in our career it is and help share that and find a way to connect. That's what I love to do, is find a way to connect to whoever it is I'm talking to and find something in common.
Yeah, I agree. And we've actually got a shout out from Kelly, who's from E&Y alumni as well. So she's
All
giving kudos
right.
to public accounting too. Um,
Yes.
I do have bad news. Ralph has shared he doesn't think it's going to be until 2030 that the Cowboys are going
Ralph,
to
man.
win. So what's your prediction, Melinda, on the Cowboys?
Well, we're all a little frustrated here in Dallas with a lot of our sports teams. Probably a lot of you know, like our favorite player is no longer here. Thanks. We're cheering Luca on. But the Cowboys have just continued to disappoint. So, Ralph, you may not be too far off. That's only 5 years from now, right? So, hey, a lot happens in 5 years. Kathy and I met 5 years ago. So,
Exactly. Very true.
yeah.
So talking of leadership and how you got to the CFO position, like how would you describe your leadership style and what's some of your
Yeah.
preferences?
So, well, just talking just a little bit about me and what drives me is I really like to create an environment where people can perform at their best. And that's again another thing that I think I learned from public accounting is as I, grew up in my career, that's what I always refer to it as. I learned that I had to manage up and I had to manage down. And managing down didn't mean telling people how to do the things the way I wanted it done. It was coaching them, leading them in the way that best suited them. You may have someone who needs you to check in with them all the time, and others who say, hey, just give me clarity on what I need to do, when it needs to be done, and I got it. And then I'll just check in periodically. I think, great example is I just hired a new FP&A manager. He started 6, 7 weeks ago now, or actually beginning of the year. And I knew the previous CFO that he worked with. They were both leaving. So I was able to talk to her and get some great insight on how he liked to be managed. And then I confirmed that with him when he started. He just needs guidance. What are you looking for? When do I need to do it? And then just some periodic check ins. And it's been great because he has really delivered and we're learning how to work together. But I think that's one of the best things as a leader, that people don't need to change who they are to work with me. I want someone to bring their authentic self. Those are the words we always use at EY, bringing your whole authentic self to work. And
Hmm.
I can adjust. As the leader, I will adjust how I work and manage and coach and lead based on what that individual is best suited for. People enjoy coming to work when they can be who they are and they don't have to say, oh, well, Melinda wants me to do it this way. Sure, there are certain things I'm really quirky about and I'm upfront about it. Um, but I'm work to be really flexible and it doesn't have to be my way. I think it really goes to, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. You hear that all the time, but man, it's awesome to be in a room where someone that reports to you has great ideas. So you don't feel like you have to be thinking about everything. That
Yeah.
is just, I love seeing that. I think that's one thing about me is I get so much joy cheering people on and seeing their successes. Um, whether it's at work, like one of the best things when I left a company, they promoted the controller into my old role. I was thrilled, and that's what I recommended when I left. When I've seen people at EY make partner that, gosh, they were interns or staff, man, that was awesome. Of course, now I feel really old because they're partners. And then I even bring it in my home life. Like, I'm pretty straight narrow. I'm an accountant and finance person. We're pretty, in a box. But I'm pretty quirky and I like to have fun. I cheer my kids on. I cheer their friends on. I am the biggest cheerleader and supporter of my friends and family and want to celebrate.
Yeah. So that's a lot to unpack. So that's
Yeah. Yeah.
um I want to go back first to the fact your situational leadership, right? And as you said, trying to understand how each person shows up and really leading them as necessary. And the reason that one's really rang a bell right away was we were doing a boot camp this week, and one of the things we do is ask everyone on the call what's their leadership style. And there isn't any right or wrong
Right.
way, right? And each situation requires a different one, and each one has pros and cons. And when you know what other people enjoy and how you're going to get the most out of it, it really is powerful. So I love the fact that you're asking that question. So I have a question for you kind of on that. How much do you share about your leadership style and what you need when you're working with someone? So you had the new FP&A
Yeah.
individual. Did you share what your preferences are?
Yeah, so I talk a lot about what I'm really transparent. Sometimes that's wonderful, and sometimes people tell me that's a little too much. I try to not go into the TMI zone too much, but um, I'm really honest on what I'm looking for, what I need, how I work best, and that if it's not working for me, it's, hey, this is what we need to have done. I'm going to check in just to make sure, because sometimes silence doesn't mean everything's going great. Right. And we work. So I'm generally in the office. My team is generally in the office. That's how we're working right now. So it's easy for us to just check in. So I do a lot of drive-bys just to see. But I think clarity is really, really important for making sure we can execute on what is needed. And one of our values at DivCon is being agile and flexible. And in a high growth company that's backed by private equity, man, you got to be agile and flexible because things change. So, yeah, so it's clarity on when things have changed. And so I work to do my best to say, here's how I operate best. And I really like people to manage up. So you go to the tell me what you need. Don't I can't mind read. I think we all wish we could. So that's what I do. Hopefully that answered your
Yeah,
question.
no, it's spot on. And you and I have talked about it in the past, but the E3 leadership profile that I work with folks on is it's about knowing yourself, right? Because you did a lot of self-reflection to truly know who you are, how you work best. And when you share that, it is being vulnerable and scary sometimes,
Hmm.
but what you get back in return, as you're saying, is a lot of trust. And then they know how best to work with you. They don't have to read your mind either.
Right. Right. Yeah, mind reading doesn't go very far. And that made me think of one other thing, and I've heard it repeated on some of your other leadership lives is assume the best intent. And so what I find sometimes is people may misunderstand what I'm doing, but I'll say, hey, I'm just checking in. So when I say something that could be heard differently, I gauge a reaction, which is why I actually love being in person. I feel that I get a better sense of somebody. Uh, and I look and I say, okay, are we hearing this the same way? And I'll check in. Did that come out the way I wanted it to? Because here's what I'm really trying to say and why I'm saying it. I'm not trying to tell you what to do or how to do it, but this is kind of the end result.
Do you feel when you think back over your career, Melinda, do you feel like you did that naturally, or is that something you learned over time and the value of doing that?
Um, I think I probably did it, but I didn't know why I was doing it. And I talk about it a lot with I have some wonderful girlfriends and groups that I'm in. And one of my dear friends always talks about the positivity of assuming positive intent. And I know that's something you really talk about at all. Nobody shows up coming in expecting to do a bad day. And I think it's important as leaders when you see someone having an off day, they're they're not performing badly, right? Something's going on. And so that's where I always look to deliver. So, hey, check in with so and so. Something seems off. Are we sure we've trained them right? Is something going on in their home life? What's really going on? And so that's where it goes back to learning how to form a relationship so someone can trust that they can open up.
Yeah, that's great. And, being able to have those conversations are really important. But Ralph asked a good question, of sharing. Is there TMI? Right. So when you think about being your authentic self, and how do you determine, and is this something you consciously think about, Melinda, on what's the cutoff point where it's tied to being you, but not too much, right? So that you
Right.
connect with folks. Any advice?
Yeah, so we have our executive leadership team. There's four of us here at DivCon. Fabulous, one of the best leadership teams I've worked with. And I feel like I can really share anything. And I know my CEO wants to know. So I feel that's a really safe environment to talk about. Oh gosh, I've got this going on. Shoot, I'll say here, I'm over 50, right? Some days I'm like, where's my fan? And I'm, like, oh my God, I'm dying right now. So that may be something that, okay, that may be TMI, but I think it's really good to know that, hey, this is what's going on with someone. But I think with my people that report to me, there is this boundary where I don't want to overshare. I do talk about the challenges of balancing kids and aging parents. I know, Kathy, we've talked about that a lot, and I think it's really healthy to do that. I don't want to hide. I want to show that, hey, I get it and that I'm supportive of it. Yeah, so I think, there might be some times where, maybe there was a challenge at work that I went through that I'm not going to share with somebody, but I'll share it with the leadership team just to say, hey, I've seen this before. Here's what happened. So I think there's that delicate balance. That's a great, great question. And only you can determine what's the right boundary.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of that is building the trust, right? So
Right.
there is the need to, you have to put it out there a little bit because people say, oh, okay, you're going to be open. So then I can feel comfortable to be
Yes.
more open. And then it's a little bit of a dance, right? Of how much do we want to share? What are we comfortable with? And everyone is different, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm assuming, and I'm going to make an assumption here, but traditionally in accounting, you have people that are much more comfortable with numbers. They're probably much more about cerebral and thinking, and probably a little more introverted at times. And so
For
you need
sure.
to know your audience, right? And who you're working with.
Yeah, and that's definitely what defines what I would call a successful finance and accounting team is those who can really get out and learn the business and walk the halls and build relationships. Those are going to be the most successful. And I'd say that anywhere, right? It's not just finance and accounting, but yes, accountants love a good spreadsheet.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting into the role of a CFO, I assume, was that some of the stretch for you? Is to get out of that comfort behind you? You talked about being vulnerable to come on here. Is this the stretching
Yeah.
you're talking about? Is really being more in front of people, talking, learning the business, and understanding the nuances behind just the numbers?
Yes, for sure. And the best thing you can do is provide insight. But going back to being a stretch, so when I left from being a partner, which right, I understood I was a partner for 7 years, been in public accounting for 20, like I understood that. And it was probably about a month into my first CFO role that the CEO looks at me, well, what do you think, Melinda? And I was like, I don't know. I've never seen this before. This is new. And that's when I realized the importance of having those go-to people and saying, one, hey, I don't know, but I have a really good group of people I can go get some insight from that can give me some ideas and share that
Yeah.
with them. I think that's totally okay. And it's okay. Like what I have always said, this is even from public accounting. It's always better to say, hey, let me check on that. I'll get back to you than provide a bad answer, right? And that always goes well. And I think it's good as a leader for your teams to see you doing that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And I think, it, and Kelly's mentioning it as well. Sometimes it can be really hard to lead with that vulnerability, but it does make a huge difference, right? Because you want to build trust with your teams. And I've found in accounting, one of the biggest things is we make mistakes at times,
For sure.
but you want your team to be comfortable. Come tell me ahead of time there might be a mistake so we can
Mhm.
get on top of it, as opposed to trying to hide it or, cover it up, because we can work on it. So trust is so important when you're dealing with the teams in accounting, and, honestly, all teams, but even more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And I had that exact experience from this week. So my FP&A manager is fairly new. I have an interim controller in place. We're working through a few kind of challenging issues. And I said really clearly, don't wait for a meeting. Don't don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what's really going on. And if you're concerned, walk in my office, send me a message, whatever. Just tell me. I'd rather work through it together than have you sit there worried about something or how to tell me. And I work to take things and we just figure it out. What are the facts? Let's just get to the facts and we'll figure it out.
Yep. I love it. I'm going to shift a little bit. Now you've spoken a lot about that you're very blessed. You've talked about your family. You've talked about, kind of the challenges of managing home and work at the same time. You shared with me that you have a family mantra.
Yeah,
Would you share that with the
sure.
audience? And then I'd love for
Yeah.
you to talk about how you bring that into the office as well.
Yeah. So when our kids were young, so they're now 22, 20, and 17. It's always easy to come back to when you're talking about challenges or when maybe your kid didn't make the best choice. Coming back to what our family mantra is respectful, responsible, and fun to be around. And that sometimes their behavior, they weren't fun to be around. So that's where we could tie it back in. And it goes back to our faith is really important. But we didn't, it was just an easy mantra to say where all the things about being kind kind of all came back into there, being, respectful to your teachers and to others in your life, and shoot, to each other as siblings or to your parents. So I love that mantra. It
Yeah.
just sticks with me still. Yeah.
And that is really your values then that you bring into the office, right? And you lead by.
Yes, yes. Normally, again, I go back to I said I was a little quirky. Sometimes I'll introduce myself as the chief fun officer, which doesn't necessarily go with a CFO, but I do like to have fun and to celebrate those wins. So you want it to be someone to be fun to be around. I've worked with people who, they're the Eeyore of the group. No offense to Eeyore, love Eeyore, but they're the Debbie Downer. You don't want to be around those people. So I think a lot of it's the framing of how you think about issues and, you're bringing those to the teams. But yeah, respectful, responsible, and fun to be around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. So when you think about leadership and, if I put out there the job of the team is really to deliver results, what are some of the basics that you think about on how to set your team up for success and delivering results?
Yeah, so we just actually did this yesterday because again, I have a new team. I had outlined kind of timing. So, right in finance and accounting, it's all about you're always delivering reports. So, what was I going to commit to? So, I have my cadence of reporting, and then I have okay, who is the audience? And so I said, here's our big picture framework. I'd like for you guys to work together to actually put these out on the calendar for the next 3 months. And you got to work together because FP&A can only put out a forecast after the books are closed. So, controller, when are you going to have the books closed? And we're still working on improving that timing. So, okay, what does good look like? And then let's work back. So I think it was framing it up and saying, you guys work together. Here's my expectations, and let's put it out there and we'll adjust. So that's one of the things that I do. That's just a real concrete example from yesterday.
And I love it. And if we go back to the E3 leadership code, that's the express, right? Express the end vision. Where are you going and what's the end goal, right? And
Right.
making sure that's out there because it also helps eliminate the need to micromanage then.
For sure, right? And you can just do check-in, are we on track? And it goes back to like what you just said, it made me think about what's the purpose of a finance and accounting department, right? It's to provide insights to business leaders so we can make informed decisions timely. And so, it's one thing I've always learned from Kathy is, sometimes I'm a victim of wanting perfection. And so I really want it to be perfect. And she continually reminds me sometimes just a red, yellow, and green is great. And so I have to remind myself that. I have to remind a lot of other folks in finance and accounting that, perfect is the enemy of good. So, we've got a dashboard and we're going to continually improve on it. But again, I always have to remind people what's our purpose? We are providing insights to the rest of the business to make good decisions.
And I love that purpose statement, right? You're not in business to just run reports,
Right, right.
right? And you're empowering the company to be able to be better to meet the goals and providing those insights to make good decisions is really the vision, right? The purpose,
Right.
which is so much more powerful than, okay, here's the checklist. You got to go finish, everything on this list.
Yeah, and there are absolutely some accountants who just want to provide a report, right? That's what they want to do. And then I find the ones who are really successful, especially where we are at DivCon, they want to be part of the business. They got out of whatever job they were in because they want to help lead, for our growth. And so how are they going to do that? They're going to have to be really engaged in the business and providing great information.
Yeah, and as we were preparing for this, you had a one of your mantras or something that you'll always hear Melinda saying, but that everyone's responsible for the employees, the customers, suppliers, sales, and cash. And I love
Yeah.
that statement.
Yeah, and someone joked with me. I said that, and they said, "Melinda, that's the whole business." But if, but if people like the two big things, I have a hat behind me actually that just says EBITDA, and I put my own little thing above it. Cash, is bigger than EBITDA, and it's when I hear somebody in another department say, "Well, collection's not my responsibility." Our customers paying us gets you paid.
Yeah.
Right, or us sending out a good invoice keeps our customers happy, so they don't have to like, that's frustrating if you get bad invoices,
Yep.
right? Or how we deal with them when we're working through an issue, and by the fact that we are buttoned up, that helps them perhaps sales, right? With that, people are like, "Oh, with the DivCon's delivering great, invoices," right? That doesn't always connect, but, you just wanna see that the company's got their act together, and we're part of that, and we take care of each other, that, just because we aren't on the people team doesn't mean that we don't care for our people. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things is I really care about my team.
Yeah. And the entire organization. I'll take it so
Yes.
far. Having worked with you,
Yeah,
it's the purpose, people first strategies. Finance is a big part of that, of making it happen.
for sure. And that it goes to when people come to me with an issue, I think, the one of those other mantras, I've got a plaque that says everything is figure outable. And I don't know that figure outable is a word, but it is now. And hey, we'll figure it out together. I don't want to be the CF no. I want to be the hey, CFO, we'll figure it out together.
CFO, no, that I mean, we've got a whole bunch of good ones. The chief fund officer, the CF. We don't want to be the CF. No, this is fantastic. Everything is figure outable. I love it. We're gonna start making all these little plaques and banners put out there. But it's
Yeah.
also, I remember having a conversation with one leader, and someone came back and said, I can't do it, or that they're not agreeing, whatever. And he's like, no one wakes up with bad intent. So
Right.
they don't mean to say no, but it means that we haven't asked the question relevant to what their purpose is or what they're trying to accomplish.
Exactly, exactly. And it's the, I was having an interaction the other day with somebody, and it was a really hard day personally. And like, that wasn't in my frame. And so as soon as she responded, I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be talking to you about this right now, because it's not at the top of your priority list. Like, it's important to me right now, but I get it. It's okay. So I knew she wasn't being at all upset with me, right? It was not the right time. Like, I should know better. It's kind of the read the room.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you've got to just be really, I think, balancing about those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been talking, you talk about in accounting and finance and as the CFO, right? You do have to worry about everything because everything flows down to the bottom line.
Yeah.
I love when I'm talking to sales teams. I'm like, okay, raise your hand if you're part of sales, right? It's the entire
That's
company.
right. Yep.
It's the same thing when I talk about leadership. Who's the leader in the company? It's the entire organization. Same thing with accounting, finance. Like ultimately, we're there to drive success, right? And really drive the business forward. And we all have a role to play in that.
Right, right, and that's where I work really hard. I think the company's working really hard to connect people, one, to our values, and connect them to our goals for the year so everyone can see themselves in it, because I think that's where people want to know what's their role in helping the company be successful. And if you don't link those two things, they just feel like it's a job. They just come in and, in the olden days, push paper around. Right now, maybe it's just enter invoices. But for somebody who's working on billing our customers, helping them link to, client satisfaction or feedback is great.
Yeah. And I know this is something that you do quite a bit is making sure people know what their role is in the bigger picture, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but when you say that the purpose of accounting and finance, right, is to provide those insights, but knowing what my role, even if I, not even if, but when I'm responsible for processing the invoices, it does have a bigger play into the whole organization, right? And
Right.
making people understand what are the expectations and how does it make a difference.
Right. Like we've got someone in charge of billing and we have a billings goal and it's right outside her office and a collections goal. So she's really clear on what's important to help us achieve at least the financial metrics that we're looking for.
Yep, I love it. So one of the things we tend to go back to when we're in these discussions, right, is to really think about the E3 leadership code. And when you've been talking through this whole thing, whether you realized it or not, you've really been talking about how to make sure that you express that end vision, right? And making sure people know what is it we're trying to accomplish, why, the purpose. We talked a lot about engaging people the way they want to be engage, right? You talked about what's your leadership style. This is mine. This is how we're going to work together. And, it's funny. One of the things that you really haven't spoken about a ton, but you do so naturally is that execution side and making sure that you've got the dashboards and how do we follow through on stuff and really hold people accountable.
Yeah, and on the execution side, I'm just a big process person, and so I schedule everything. So if we're going to talk about what's our 13-week cash flow forecast, right? That meeting is 2 times a week going on the calendar. Our one-on-ones, they're scheduled out on the calendar. The time I take to do the dashboard, scheduled on the calendar. So I find that it really helps me rather than you get in the office on Monday and you go, oh, wait, I got to do the dashboard. It's scheduled in my calendar. So that I think really helps. It's like anything, people, process, and technology. You got to even embed that in your own way of managing your own self and getting the things that are done is what is the right process to execute.
Yep. I love it. So Melinda, believe it or not, we're at the
Yeah,
bottom of the hour already. I told you
that's
this would go
crazy.
fast.
Yeah, you were right. Once again, Kathy was right.
Can we make sure my husband heard that one? But just kind of in closing, what's some advice you would have for people that are in their career trying to figure out what's next, what to do, how to be a better leader? What advice would you have for them?
So some of the best things I have, and you've heard me talk about this a lot, is my network. Build your network and find your people. I've got an incredible group from college. Shout out to any of them, and hopefully they'll listen to the recording that help me be a better person, better leader, because I can call them and ask them questions. I'm in a couple of different CFO peer groups that help me. I'm in a Bible study that helps pick me up when I've had a hard day. I can text them, hey, pray for me for this. And then, of course, my family. But I think it is stretching yourself, asking for what you want. I just had a discussion with someone this week on, well, have you asked them? Have you told them what you're wanting to do with your career? Because if you haven't told them, they don't know. Again, they're not mind readers. So that's why that was a lot. So find your network. And it's going to be a group of different people to help guide you in career. I always believe we're not alone and you can go and find the people to help support you. If anyone ever wants, advice, feel free to connect with me. But that's what I think is you're not alone. Ask for help. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that. And we did an article one day was like build your board of directors, right?
Yes.
Like you are your own business and you should have your network of coaches, mentors, friends, family. I mean, it doesn't need to be one person, it's an entire
Right.
community.
Yep. Exactly.
I
Yes.
love it. And
Great.
and so as we end up, so Melinda, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope to have you back because you just had so much insight to share. And this was absolutely fantastic. And it's a pleasure watching you, evolve in your career and really help others, right, as you inspire them to be better.
Thank
Um,
you.
and we're going to make sure we get a lot of these mantras into the notes so people get it that are watching after the fact. But, chief
Yeah.
financial officer, right? Really being able to read the room, care about everyone, showing up vulnerably and authentically. This was absolutely fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks again for having me.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you. And for
All
anyone
right.
that wants to really learn more about equals Y, wants to learn about how to show up or more authentically, feel free to check us out on the website. And we have a boot camp that actually creates a community to be able to get together, learn, and join us. And thanks so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.